got things nailed out, but pretty short. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Um, so we're gonna get rocking here. Hello, Karen. Hello, Brenda. Hello, Ricardo. Hello, Bobby. Hello, Richard. You are our committee members here today. We'll see if we get a few more joining us. Most of our agenda today is to go over some of the launch. We are formally launched on our development planning for the Columbia View and surround. And Gary did a whole bunch of work. And so that most of our meeting today is to talk a bunch about that and sort of where we're going and to remind us how we got here and what we're going to do with it. But we're live. We've got a little signed contract, and Gary is going back and forth as he told me last night for the thousandth time along the Columbia River. Uh, I don't know if any of you remember, but Gary grew up in Baker, now Baker City, and so also grew up in Southern Oregon. But he's a man about town. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to do just a little framing. So as you guys remember, we started out thinking that we might do a master plan for housing development for the whole city. And we, over literally months, that scope of work got whittled down because we figured, well, it might be best to start on a smaller chunk of area and see how this type of planning work goes. And if that is successful and everybody's feeling good about the process, then we would expand that further out to along Main Street and other parts of Boardman. But we're going to start with this chunk of property that the city owns and how it might impact some of the surrounding parcels, as we've talked about many, many times. Also, we've been learning a lot now about how to do a cottage cluster development in Newberg, Oregon. So at the end of today, I want to walk you through how that project has launched because we think it might serve as a good model for actual real estate development for the city of Boardman. And I think a lot of that will be new to the folks on this committee, but really about how that started and where it is. Because as you remember on our last call, there was a lot of thumbs up for let's do a smaller style. Let's get started on a smaller style real estate development project together. So that's our agenda today. Anybody want to add anything in uh, that we haven't talked about yet? No? All right. So let's begin. I'm going to share an image that Gary sent, um, and to start us thinking about the framing of this work for Columbia View. And Gary, I'm going to ask that you kind of get us started and
Yeah,
launching on
yeah,
what you saw and spoke with Carla
yeah,
about. Can everybody see
yeah.
that image?
Um, well, I want to say, first of all, I'm excited to be back in the committee meetings. You're going to see quite a bit of me over the next 3 or 4 months, both in Zoom and in person over there. Junior gave a nice hint of the meetings that we had last Thursday. After he left the meeting, I continued meeting with Carla for about an hour and a half. I'm going to share you the outcome of that. Uh, I think it's fair to say, and I would think Carla would agree that we had a really great meeting. There's amazing alignment in how to go forward, and I left there really um, excited to as quickly as possible jump into starting to develop development diagrams, which is going to be our next phase of this phase of work. And you'll start to see that over the next several weeks, where we start to say, okay, how are some of the ways that this would actually develop? And that's kind of, in my favorite wheelhouse of generating a number of options, and then we'll all be meeting together and analyzing those and say, well, this kind of works and that kind of works, and over a period of 2 or 3 months, get to what looks like a consensus on how this Columbia View property and some notion about the adjacencies. So that word adjacencies brings us to this diagram. And I've done a lot of what are called infill projects over my career, big and small. And infill is defined by being a piece of property that's surrounded immediately by neighbors. In this case, directly across the street from the Sage Center, bordering properties on Front Street, the urban renewal property to the north, and various properties going west from this property. So what I've learned with infill is you can't just isolate the one piece and ignore what's around it. You're starting a process that begins to engage and glue yourself together with those surrounding pieces. You may not design all those edges, but it's important to know what their possibilities are and how, in fact, the way you lay out in the property in pink here is the 17 acres of Columbia View. How might what we're doing there begin to connect with people's ideas about adjacent properties? And I've never worked on a piece of work like this that had this big of a potential in the heart of a town. And so you should hear all that with some excitement in my voice that we have a big opportunity in front of us here, not just the Columbia View site, though that's where our contractual focus is, but what we do there will help inform and be informed by those adjacent properties. And that then became the major focus of what Carla and I got into. And maybe it's time then to bring up the second image.
Can do.
Sometimes you do stuff and you don't expect that they're going to be, for public consumption. But I thought it would be interesting for you to see our actual work plan, or that both with Junior and then later on with just Carla and I were poring over to get the latest information. In the case of Junior, showing the extensive work that's about to begin and, as I understand, finished by December, finishing the road network, both east, west, and north and south, adjacent to and through this property. So you're seeing the expansion of Boardman Avenue across the north. There's a stub out to 4th Avenue that someday most likely will go north to Columbia. You're seeing the new layout and construction about to begin on 4th Street going north and south. And then there's the extension of 3rd from where it leaves itself by the residential development and then curves around and comes into Front Street. And then there'll be an alley connecting across what is Site 14, and I'll describe that in a minute, but that connects those streets. So the connectivity of that property is really enhanced by what's on the screen, and then there will be a subset of smaller alleys and lanes within the larger Columbia View parcel itself. So we had this as a raw drawing in our meeting with Junior's help, aligned and showed where the construction has already been awarded for all those street improvements and should begin fairly soon. And then
Hey,
Carla
Gary.
and go
Gary,
ahead.
one quick second since we got Junior here. Junior, is there anything you want to, I mean, now that we've got
Yeah.
this image up, is there anything you want to fill into the committee that we're either missing or just would be helpful for folks to know?
So yeah, so to start, Third Street will be the initial construction site. So the extension from Third Street where it ends at the residential to Front Street will be the initial, yep, that'll be the initial build. And that's so when they take Front Street out, you'll still have access to 6, 5, 4, and 8, which are the splash pad, soccer field, and skate park. So we want to be able to have access to those when we take Front Street out. In further discussion, we're going to push for, as Third Street goes in, the alley will happen at the same time. And then probably the extension of Boardman Avenue to Olson and 4th. We're really hoping that all of that will be constructed before they deconstruct Front Street. So everybody will have access because section 2 and 3 are going to be being built at the same time we're doing the Northeast Front Street, and that will be the motel. So it's all gonna be happening at the same time. So they'll need to have, as the 3rd, 4th, Boardman Alley are all being done, they'll have access off of Front Street. And then as soon as all of that is done and opened, they'll have to get their access from Olson Road to 4th Avenue or 4th Street to come in. So we got to keep them access through the whole process.
Junior, can you remind everybody what's going on Front Street? Like what is that project? You said
So that project is a complete reconstruction of the road, widening it, new road, new street lights, sidewalk on the north only. South will not have sidewalk in it. There will be some additional parking on the south. Yep, so it'll be all brand new road all the way through.
Thanks.
All the pipe, all the in-ground infrastructure has pretty well been done. So there won't be a whole lot of more infrastructure going in, except for maybe a little bit of stormwater catch basins.
Gotcha.
So
Thank
you
you.
said the hotel's going in on 321?
3, 2. 1 is the parking for the extra parking for Sage Center.
Yeah, oh yeah,
that's already built out.
Yep, that's already built out.
Yep,
Three
2 and
two.
3 is the motel.
That's already been awarded. Do we know what hotel that is?
Yes, it is a extended stay.
Okay.
And that will start construction probably mid to end of May. As will the roads.
It's a 3-story building, I think under the flag name of Woodspring Suites.
Yes.
Of what? Spring?
Woodspring.
Woodspring.
What did you call it, Junior? Did you call it an extended stay hotel?
Yeah, I mean that's what they called it in the original pre-apps, was extended stay. It's what it's set up for is it's going to be set up with weekly rates. So if you have like conferences at the Sage Center, you can be that, it's a close proximity to the Sage. So when they have, yeah.
It's similar to I think it's called a Residence Inn by Marriott.
Yeah.
When we travel and everything, we try to, and we know we're going to be out there a week or more, we try to get weekly rates on a place. Yep.
So thanks, Junior. That's helpful to understand the phasing. And then before Gary keeps going, do you have notes on timing?
So yeah, I mean, so the construction for Front Street and all of the other roads should be done by December, as will the motel. And
Awesome.
then where the alleyway is, number 9, Tori could probably speak to this better than I can, but I believe that's going to be a incubator building. Hence the alley in the backside for access for deliveries.
I can give a little more information on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's all I've got for now.
Thanks, Junior.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Junior.
Yep.
Gary, back to you.
Yep. Well, you got the layout from 1, 2, and 3. If we look at parcels 4, 5, 6, and 7, they're also owned by the city. And right now they're open for development or whatever gets generated out of our master planning. There's no current development proposals for those sites. Site 9, Junior touched on that, is an incubator building. A little more specific, it's going to be a 2-story building, half of it medical and half of it incubator. That's small spaces where people are beginning to put new concepts and new ideas together for business and then get some synergy by all being in the same building together. We should be able fairly soon to get a footprint of what that how that site's going to lay out. 10, as you all know, is built. It's a Good Shepherd urgent care center. 11 is a private owner, and there's no plans at the moment for that site. 12, the city sold it somewhat recently. There's some preliminary plans for a spec commercial retail drive-through building on site 12. 13, currently there's no idea yet of development, and we may, in some of our planning, make a suggestion there on that. 14 is a major parcel that maybe most of you already know about. It's owned by the Catholic Church. They have a very robust plan that they're fundraising towards an 800 occupant sanctuary and a fellowship hall, separate buildings. I'm kind of intrigued about what we do on the Columbia View property and on site 8 and make those kind of connections going east and west with the Catholic Church property. I'll be looking at making those kind of reach out connections on all those peripheral properties to, at the end of the day, if we zoom out and look back at it, somebody will say, well, wow, this got all planned together and considered consideration for what each group was trying to do. We go to site 15. At the moment, there isn't a development plan for that. It's quite a strategic piece of property. 16 and 17 have been and still are, I guess, the long-awaited hotel and maybe some multifamily there. I don't have a schedule on that. It's had a sign up, as you all know, for quite a while, and so there's some mystery around that one. 18 is a potential, according to Carla, multifamily site, or certainly some form of residential there in keeping with the surrounding residential and being adjacent to the high school property. That brings us around to, and I learned this for the first time, that all of that property to the north of Columbia View, starting with the cemetery property and going east to Olson and for the entire length of Columbia Boulevard, is referred to as a cemetery district property. In fact, owned by the cemetery district. And it's part of a larger urban renewal notion. And Carla and I had quite a vigorous discussion around that, because you can see it's equal, if not slightly greater, than the Columbia View property. It's mostly vacant. There's some welding shop buildings that somebody has invested quite a bit in. But when we talked about that property, Carla, from a planning standpoint, said, you know, we can do some relocation there if we want to and need to. And we really should be thinking about that while we plan the Columbia View property as a phase 1 of a potential phase 2 to the north. And I just found that very exciting, because now you think about the potential we have to make a sizable mixed use community in the heart of Boardman, and I don't use that word to get it confused with the thoughts on the other side of the freeway near City Hall. But here you've got the swim center, you've got daycare, you got the Sage Center, you got a new hotel coming in, uh, Catholic Church plans. A lot's going to be happening in that greater area that the Columbia View property is key to. And so as I Nate and I work together to generate land use development plans. A lot of it is going to be suggesting what might happen in the future on the phase 2 cemetery district property. I think I'll stop there for a minute. I'm a little out of breath.
That's all right.
Any questions that anyone's had along the way that you could ask that I might be able to clarify?
I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. I believe, what is it, 16 and 17? My understanding is that there are owners of that had intended on building a hotel, and then the two owners got in a tiff with one another, and I believe they got held up due to litigation. And so it was like X amount of years they could even develop on it because of that. And then you mentioned the Catholic Church, which I'm excited about because I think, it'll really dress up that area or whatever. But it reminds me of a similar neighborhood in Pasco. My sister-in-law works for a company that builds all the homes over there, and they put a church right in the middle, and then all these neighborhoods developed around it. And so it was kind of it was a pinnacle there, and it made it look very nice. And anyways, I like that concept.
Yeah, I mean it's you've got the school and a major Catholic investment potentially coming, and then, as you say, surrounded by residential and mixed use development. It's what planners look like is where can you take things that seem like they're kind of floating around unconnected, and how do you connect them all up? And there's some major opportunities here.
Gary, I just wanted to pop in quick.
So, hey, just real quick, with the planning, is there Columbia Avenue is also like one block off of the river and major traction. Is there a walking path or some kind of access from this area here? I think about that all the time as I'm driving right next to go to the port, about getting this property somehow connected to the river and the riverfront, in a meaningful bike path, walking pathway. So I don't know if it's ever been discussed, but that would be fantastic.
So I can fill that in a little bit with the big project that happened on Marine Drive, that the port did. There was a plan to have a walking path that came across over the railroad tracks to Columbia. It would have been further west than our project area. They ran out of money and it did not happen. But there were plans at one point to do that, it would come out right by the pizza place there. It's going to come in like right behind the pizza place and cross over behind the apartment complex.
So it would be an extension of Olson, is that right? You would go down Olson through a walking path and cross the railroad tracks about there.
That wasn't where it was initially started. No, it would have been further west by quite a ways. Yeah,
Oh, so it'd be,
yeah, it would have been over
right
next to between the apartments.
so on Ullman, or not Ullman, what's the name of that? It's named after the UEC guy or something.
Eldridge. It was
Thank
even
you.
further west than that.
Oh my God.
So it's going to come out right behind Ordnance.
Hold on, sorry.
I'm sorry, not Ordnance. The pizza joint. It was going to come out right behind the pizza.
Burtfield.
Burtfield's, yes, thanks.
Yeah.
It was going to drop right into the Portview Apartments to allow access for Portview Apartments to get access to the river walking path.
Yep.
That was designed, the concept was built together, but the budget didn't allow it.
Thank you, Tori. You
You're
did
welcome.
a way better job than I did on that. I was stammering.
Get the budget to allow it.
It was great. It was beautiful. It was really going to allow connectivity and get people off of that bridge that goes over, that's very narrow, that takes you down to the Marina Park. It was going to drop right into that trail route that we have down there in the marina. But yeah, I mean, it's a future project that I think a lot of us leaders need to have in our minds when we're talking to our legislators to maybe get some funding or something for that.
Yep. Get it done.
Michael, I appreciate that, but aren't you on the housing committee?
Doesn't matter. It needs to get done.
I'm changing it to we should get it done. We should get it done. Yeah. And so then just another little moment and then look for some more comments. As a reminder, the job of this committee is to think through how housing can develop writ large across Boardman. We know that on this parcel in particular, we are also going to be considering commercial development in concert with it. And your charge is to bring on expertise. We have that in the form of the Missing Middle Housing Fund and Iris Design and Gary Reddick. We're going to be doing essentially a development plan for this parcel and making some suggestion about how it can better connect to everything around it. So Gary and I are learning. I want to stress that. We're going to spend a ton of time with Carla. We're spending a ton of time with Brandon. We'll spend a ton of time with each of you. Tori, thanks for being here. You're a critical human for us to get to know over the next few months. But you all know your city better than we ever will. And so what we really, really need from each of you, history, future plans. Richard, like what you said about 16 and 17. Junior and Tori, how you just weighed in on the potential pedestrian flyover and Michael seeing that that's a huge need. This is the type of information that we need. Really, it's invaluable to us to have you all with your years of experience in your home explaining what have been the plans, what have been the hiccups, what are the plans going forward, what's the momentum. We'll be doing all the market studies and analysis and economic analysis and proposing phasing based on what we know about housing development. But at the end of the day, you know your city. So I'm just reiterating that the plan is only as good as the inputs coming into it. Other thoughts, comments?
So I know originally we had talked about kind of a startup off of off of Boardman Avenue, the extension there, which would be the upper northwest corner of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also heard of some ideas for starting around number 8 for better visibility, more access from the public to see what's going on. The concerns with 8 would be that 6, 7, 4, and 5 are all probably going to be businesses, and would they want to have residential that close to businesses? So I just wanted to bring that up because I had conversations from different people, different thoughts, and I kind of get both of them. I think 8 would give a better view to the general public, but I do think there are concerns with what happened at 6 and 7.
Gary, are there ways to design housing along 3rd Street or prepare for 3rd Street that can then seamlessly merge into the probable commercial edges of 6, 7, and of course 5?
Yeah, I appreciated Junior bringing that up, and that we all had that discussion, and frankly got pretty excited about Site 8 as a beginning. I've shared that in the last day or two with Nate. There are ways to create buffering and transition between 6 and 7 and 8. We're going to have that same concern at 4 and 5 where it touches Columbia View property that may also want to be residential. So I think we can make that work. I'm actually uh, probably would vote until we know better. I'd like to be pushing Site 8, and maybe we even expand it a little bit beyond that imaginary white line into the first increment of housing.
So, and along with that, Gary, do you think the alleyway, since there is going to be residential next to businesses, if we extended the alley down further, that might be something?
That you read my mind.
Okay.
That we're going to need some additional connectivity going east and west there, probably along that boundary. So, and that actually then helps with the separation, and we maybe plant trees along that alley or whatever, and it becomes a helper between what happens in 4, 5, 6, and 7 and the way that 8 and Columbia View want to develop. And you get much needed access along there. Even the hotel at 2 and 3 could probably use some additional alleyway for services in their business.
Yeah, there's elevation issues over there that could be complicate that, but I still agree that the alleyway all the way from 3rd to 4th would be helpful.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, we don't show any other street connections inside, but obviously as it develops, we're going to have other street structures in between 3rd and 4th that won't necessarily come out to Front Street, but will also plat out different routes.
Yeah. And part of the process of this planning exercise is to make recommendations for that, right? So, but we'll have to be in lockstep with you, Junior. Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep that definitely in mind and going forward to what we can do. So
Yeah.
Hey, Junior, you might be you probably can be helpful. I didn't get Mike's contact information, or I could have reached out to him directly, but I did send an email to Carly yesterday uh, because as we left, she said she would be getting with Mike to try to get what topographic information he said he had for like Olson. And when the Sage Center put in, they obviously had to have grades all along Olson, and maybe some of that lops onto Columbia View, and
yeah.
and
So
and,
you're
and
also
you're doing work at the alley and the Third Street extension. There's got to be some
yeah,
topographic markers there that'd be really helpful to me.
he has that, and I will reach out to him again today and get that coming. There's also the elevation issue off of Olson Road to the east parcel. It's a pretty substantial
Oh
elevation
yeah.
of about 14 to 16 feet.
Yes. Nate and I were talking about that yesterday. It's um
A little
I
cliff.
I don't you know I actually, back when Ryan Olson was putting together an assessment of that property for the city, and the city ended up acting on his recommendation, but I was working kind of behind the scenes with him in some conceptual layouts of that area, and so that started my fuse of excitement about not seeing that cliff there as a problem but an opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ideas in the back of my mind of what you could do there. I'll leave it up to the whole group. I'll give my opinion when we get to that point. But yeah, right
Yeah.
now, I don't see it as a bad thing.
Okay. Other thoughts or comments? Because then I'm going to introduce you to one of our developments in Newburgh as a potential inspiration, maybe for Site 8, maybe for a different site. Other comments, questions for Gary?
I look forward to getting together in person over there, just so you know.
Yeah, and I'm actually talking to one of the ex-port engineers, and he's pretty sure the port has topographicals for that, and I'll work through the
Yeah,
ports.
great.
Thanks, Junior. Where might I have them? Okay. Okay, then if that's the case, I'm going to keep us moving. So I'm going to share with you a presentation that we made about a month ago. This presentation was made at an event to talk about our project that we call Hive, which is Housing Innovation Village Experience. Got to acronym everything in nonprofit world, right? So I'm going to play this little presentation for you. You all know about the big stuff, so we'll go fast through that, right? But this is the problem that we're trying to solve, not just in Boardman, but around the whole state and country at this point. As a reminder, here's who we are and what we do, right? We're trying as much as we can to eliminate that housing deficit over the next 15 years. And here's what we do. So, as a reminder, this housing committee is charged with innovation across all of these quadrants: how you fund it, how you train the workforce to build it, how you regulate it, red tape, policy, and then ultimately how you actually design it, build it, assemble it, do the housing itself. In 2019, the largest employers of Newburgh, those are the bullet points over on the left, came together and said, we have a problem. We have a housing problem. But ADEC does dental manufacturing, dental equipment manufacturing. Friendsview is a retirement home. The city, the school district, you know what they do. George Fox is a university. They've got a healthcare system just like you. And they said, our problem now in hiring and retaining people is housing. It's not the right manufacturing space. It's not finding the right talent. It's that when they come to take the job or they get the job, they don't stay or they don't show up because there's not the right housing fit for their family. A very familiar story to your story. And unlike the CREZ, which provided $1 million to you all, they got capital from Representative Anna Scharf, who is a representative in the Willamette Valley. Sedcor is their economic development engine out there, and they hired us to help them think through housing strategies writ large. Just like you had a Let's Build Boardman event, they had a Let's Build Newburgh event. And they chose some projects to try to advance. But one of the projects had a million infrastructure problems, and the other project didn't have land. It was just a vision. And so those two projects stalled, not for lack of trying, but couldn't get off the ground. And so we pivoted. We pivoted and said, well, we know what we actually need to do. We need land because people get excited when you have a piece of dirt, and then you can actually start planning something real. So our vision, and Amy on the call was a big part of actually creating this vision, was could we get single family homes, which the folks in Newburgh really wanted. They wanted single family homes at middle income prices. Could we put a whole bunch of them on one lot with different technologies just to show that you can build housing differently, almost like a showcase? Of course, there would be middle income houses for sale, and that's a wonderful thing for Newburgh. But what they really wanted to do was change how people viewed possibility. So that's the concept, right? Meanwhile, there was another Let's Build event. Urban Form launched in Yamhill County, just like it did in Boardman. And we started actually looking at different pieces of land. And last fall, we bought a chunk of land. This was our groundbreaking on December 5th. It was like the rainiest day in Oregon history, I think. Gary, on this call, was out there days before in the pouring down rain, helping us plot out the different house sites. Thank you, Gary. I think we all caught hypothermia. The guy with the Santa Claus hat, that is their mayor. That's Mayor Bill Rossiker. Elise is the one to his right, who I think, Tori, is this true? Still helping with your campaign, I think. And she's
Yes.
the city council president in Newburgh, Oregon. And then all the employers are represented here, plus their economic development group. Their economic development group is SEDCOR, which traditionally serves as like a three-county-wide chamber of commerce, but they had never done anything with housing to that point. This is Ryan, who, as Gary mentioned earlier, helped do the analysis of the Columbia View property. He's me and Amy's teammate. And here we are on the site with days to go before our groundbreaking. There's a big old mud pit. So here's what the concept is. This is 10 for sale houses with different builders. You can see over on the left, each unit has different technologies, right? Automated construction, carbon negative concrete. We have modular steel. We have modular cross laminated timber, off-site and on-site assembly. And then we have different innovations happening with the city around its red tape, around its public policy, and we have different innovations with how we actually fund it. You are all invited when we have our show this October. I would love it if some contingent could come from Boardman. It's a long way, but it would be really, really exciting to see what's possible. If you look over on the far left with the sales prices, a different big difference between Newburgh and Boardman is that Newburgh is in the heart of Yamhill County, the third wealthiest county in the state of Oregon. So their area median income is very high. This is what it ended up looking like. This is the real site plan. If you look in the top right-hand corner, you see a driveway. That driveway goes out to a street. This is what's known as a flag lot. It's shaped like a flag. There's a long, skinny flagpole that goes all the way out to the street, and then the flag is here. Right here, this white space going forward to the street is actually a house. This is the house that fronts the street, okay? And a bunch of college students live in it. And so we bought this thing, which is actually behind. And it's a cottage cluster. Each of these houses is between, say, 900 and 1,400 square feet. And it surrounds a community space. If you look at the back, lots 4, 5, 6, and 7, that's what they will actually look like. These are built by Mods PDX. They have built a few hundred units across the Pacific Northwest. They are our most experienced builder on this project.
Are those townhouses?
They are not connected to each other.
But built like a townhouse. I mean, that's a two-story. That's one residence.
Correct.
Okay.
This is a two-story, and this is actually a three-story.
Okay, nice.
These will be built with cross-laminated timber floors and ceilings. Is everybody familiar with cross-laminated timber? What that is? There's a lot of timber in Oregon that is, we don't have as many old growth trees getting cut down. So we have a lot of timber that's lower value. And in an effort to make that product, those lower value, smaller diameter trees very useful, you can turn them into different tiny sheets. They're very, very narrow, and you stack them like this. And then you use a product called glue lam to stack and glue them, and they get fatter and fatter and fatter until they're beams. They're actual big beams or structural elements. You can support skyscrapers out of that product. You can do a different product that's more like plywood, and you stack a whole bunch of different shredded wood products as plywood, and then you stack those sheets and glue them together. And so they become structural elements in the buildings themselves. These 4 buildings use that technology. And then lot number 4, which is right here, which is this building. Lot number 4 will be built with a workforce training program led by this group, Mods PDX. They have a nonprofit called Build to Scale. And what they do is they teach young folks about how to do off-site building construction. And so they will have a cohort go through. They're usually between the ages of 18 and 30 years old. The first cohort will build this house in the factory. The second cohort will come and install it. And the third cohort will build out all the interior finishes. All of these get built within a week or 2 because most of the work happens off-site. Then when they sell this unit, all the proceeds from the sale of that unit will go back into the workforce training program. These
Are
are two.
those students local or are they students to that company specific in their community?
They're almost certainly all Portland Metro because that's where the factory is. Um,
But the on-site
some of the
students, could
on-site
they
we
be
think
interns from our local area?
absolutely yes.
Okay.
So working with the workforce investment board locally to Newburgh to get some of the on-site installation. Lots 9 and 10. That's these two. This one on the right is actually Ryan's company. Ryan's company is Steel Frame Modular. So they build modular houses out of steel panels. It's called Elemental Building Technologies. And then the one here on the end is this company, Mahonia Northwest, which Gary is actually a part of. Hi, Gary. And hoping to do panelized construction on a go-forward basis. This will be their first cottage product, which is pretty cool.
So I have a quick question if we go to the square building. So yeah, the with a with local codes with wind and snow loads, are those all built to where they will actually fit into our
They
zone?
have to be. I mean,
They
you don't have
they
to use these.
they have to be in all cases.
So I guess my concern there, if you had a 3 foot of snow and it piled on top of that, I mean, I'm just wondering how that is dealt with.
Sure.
Typically, the jurisdictions with their building codes to require structural calculations to make sure that all that is accounted for before they ever issue the building permit.
And the only
This is
reason I bring it up is we have a lot of, yeah, there you go. We have a lot of industry here that have roofs like that because they put their air conditioning units and their stuff on top. And I just know that for those companies, it's a nightmare when we have big storms to
right.
get the snow
I,
load off.
I can speak from personal experience when we owned the hardware store.
Yep.
We had to go up on the roof and clear the water off pretty much every time it rained with a broom.
So Junior, you don't have to use these companies, number one.
No, yeah, I was just, yeah.
Just an example.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if that was going to be an issue. So,
Number two, you did pick the one building structure here that's made out of steel.
yeah.
So,
And I get that. Yep.
Yeah.
so this building here in the right foreground is Humankind Homes. They are geopolymer concrete blocks. They're about 6 months behind the rest of them. And so when the show opens in October, this house will not be built, which is why they're on the edge, right? So that you can still reach it while the rest is getting built. And they build with drones. So the objective, the goal, cross your fingers, is that we will actually have drones on site during the home show building their foundation, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
This
And
house
what
over
about
here,
the building right directly behind the drone built house? I don't
these are
remember the number.
both elemental. So these are both steel frame modular. This one here is all cross-laminated timber built by Cedar Stone. It'll actually be a two-story house. And they are a Native women-owned company based out of Springfield. And then, like any
Nice.
good project, we were working with another cross-laminated timber company to build a single-story accessible dwelling unit here. And they're not gonna be able to hit the timeline. So it's important to show that because like with any good project, there's hiccups throughout it. So we've designed this building for multiple builders to be able to build it, and now we're looking for the right builder to pull it off. So, it doesn't always work exactly how you want it to work.
I
In the
think the
middle,
thing I like about this little cottage cluster homes is that even though there's vastly different shapes and designs and looks, it doesn't come off as really awkward looking.
Mm.
You know how sometimes in a community you're trying to find that continuity and you end up with three different designs of houses, two that are just mirror opposite of one another, and one of them that's just got a second story on it, but it's the same thing. So this is a nice look.
Well,
Um, so I
Ryan would be very
appreciate that.
pleased that you said that,
Yeah.
because
Well, I
he's
think I think that's an important element when you spend $300,000 for a home or
that's right.
200,000. You want to be in a place where it looks good
That's
too.
exactly right.
Resale value is very important to people.
Well, and the how it looks and feels, especially if this is meant to be a showcase, if this is meant to prove that you can do things differently, it should look coherent, right? In the middle, of course, is the community structure. It's kind of like a pavilion space, but Elemental, the same guys that are doing the steel frame, are providing the steel superstructure for this. And then the cladding is going to be all done by Humankind Homes in their geopolymer concrete. So we've got these two companies collaborating on building the actual community space.
So
Can you
quick
talk
question.
about the internal garden, the rain garden?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's, meant to look beautiful, but also serves a very important role of stormwater mitigation. You got a lot of roofs here, so you have to treat some of your stormwater on site. And so turning that into a community amenity is one way to deal with that before it goes off. Much like Junior was talking about the slope of Columbia View, there's a slope here. On the right side is higher than the left, so it slopes from the right to the left. And the back is higher than the front. So there's two slopes here. So the rainwater, if you went to the back right corner, that's the high point. And the whole slope kind of slopes down like this, and then also this direction. So you use that slope to move water and make a beautiful amenity, but it does a very real, we're required by code to take care of our stormwater in thoughtful ways, Brenda.
I do understand. We have some bioswales around here, quite a few of them
Yeah.
actually, and French drains to try to accommodate that. But I'm wondering about safety of something like that with maybe small children in that middle income area.
Yeah, it's a good point. So um, actually don't, I think the rain garden fills up on a very temporary basis when it's raining. And then the majority of the time it's dry and loaded with plants. So the water feature being permanent there is a little bit misleading, to be honest.
Especially in our region, we have 9 inches of annual rainfall with a 54-inch evaporation rate. Very seldom to have water.
Yeah,
It's true, but when we do, we have to fence off the bioswales so that the children can't get into them because they do get a couple of feet deep.
that's good. Well, and remember,
Yeah.
this is meant to simply be an example for all of you. This isn't what you will build necessarily, right?
Of
So
course.
I had another question on that.
Yeah,
So in this community area, so is this going to have a HOA type of a substance to it?
it does.
Okay,
It
that
does
was
have
my
an
question.
HOA.
Okay.
Because that pays for the community spaces, but also the parking, right? And like the garbage facility here and different pieces. So there will be an HOA, which is important because it's also how we ensure there's no short-term rentals. So nobody can buy it and turn it into an Airbnb. These have to be permanent residents. Um, Interesting development team. We anticipated that each of the employers um, would help us market these houses to their employees, and they are, right? That's the target market is those employers that we started with. However, it turns out the employers themselves might actually want to buy one or two of them as well, because what they have, I'll give George Fox as a good example. George Fox is trying to attract admins and professors from around the country who might have a wonderful house that they love in Toledo, Ohio. And they sell that house, and the proceeds of that sale help them get half of a house in Newberg, Oregon. So they don't take the job, right? Or they can't find the right fit. So what George Fox University has taken to doing is buying homes in Newburgh. And when they have inbound potential employee or they hire them, they have a place for those folks to land. Then, they figure out what their next permanent fit is, but there's at least a place where that inbound employee can live. Friendsview with their senior care workers is looking at the same thing. It's kind of fascinating how that has developed over the course of this project.
And we have a number of companies in Boardman that also do that, that have purchased homes in both Boardman and Arlington. And then they do contracts for 6-month windows for housing for those new employees.
So from our perspective, that's a pretty big win because the employers that had the problem in the first place, the whole reason we're doing this, are now putting their money where their mouth is now that there's an actual product to buy, right? Pretty interesting.
We do want to
Um,
sell, we do want to sell to people too, not just to employers, because it'd be nice to have cohesive long-term residents.
mhm. Yeah, I anticipate if we're lucky, we'll have both. Um, at the end of the day, we have to sell houses, right? So when we had our big event in March, it was about help us sell 10 homes. Um, we have a budget. It's not full. We're still raising for a gap. And then the bulk of that cash that you see up at the top is money that we're trying to raise so that we have the greatest housing innovation event the state of Oregon's ever seen, right? Which Amy is in charge of. Go, Amy. So we're raising money so that it's not just here's 10 houses, it's come see our 10 houses. We anticipate thousands of folks will come through this to learn about the different technologies and how you can do it, which is really a big splash for the small city of Newburgh, Oregon. And we think, why can't you do that in Boardman? Why can't Boardman be the heart of innovation for housing in your part of the world? It should be. It should be. Um, each house has about 250K that they're hoping to raise, right? This is from the foundation up. Now, most of the time, I see Ricardo nodding. It's because most of it's bank financing, right? But when it's a brand new technology, the banks need different ways to de-risk that loan. So we're working with the Economic Development Agency to actually be in second position to some of that. We're working with Business Oregon to potentially provide some loan guarantees. So it's kind of an elegant way to get through each builder's financing needs.
Didn't
Ricardo?
we didn't we agree to go forward, Nate, with some gap financing or some developer financing to support things like this through the state? We haven't, it's not implemented yet, but the city council
Oh,
agreed
yes. The moderate
to
income revolving
embark in
loan
that
fund.
way.
Are you talking about that, the MERL, the moderate income
I
revolving loan
am,
fund? Yeah.
yes.
Still doesn't work. Still not a single loan made out of it yet. But City of Boardman, you are one of the two guinea pigs right now, you and Coos Bay. So Stephen Brooks, who you've met on a couple of your committee meetings, is diligently working with your city, and quite frankly, the state, to change how the legislation works so that it is more advantageous to cities like yours. Stay tuned. But yes, you did approve that, Brenda. You approved $5,000 for that, in fact. And then at the end of the day, these companies need cash just to survive. They need cash to have working capital to grow. So just like any startup business, they need a combination of loans and equity financing. This isn't really the job of this committee or the city of Boardman, but we were sitting in a room with a whole bunch of funders explaining how this project could go. And so we said, hey, if you're looking to invest. So then back to this. This is our last slide on this. Um, we talk a lot about these four areas of innovation, right? And so here we go. For products design and assembly, we actually have an exhibition in the parking lot that will be 5 to 10 other technologies. And we have those 10 homes with 5 different technologies. So when everybody's coming through to see the houses in the parking lot, we will have like somebody with a different kind of roof and somebody with a section of wall with a different type of building materials. The city of Newburgh is changing their actual how they work. Junior, their Department of Public Works prohibited having a single line from the street all the way down that long driveway that would then spider out to 10 houses, right? For sewer or water or electric, which was bonkers because that would have meant we had to install hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of extra feet of utility. So they have changed how they do business based on this high profile project. And so now they have Junior's gone. He's like, screw that. So now they have a separate line that goes from the street all the way back to the project site. HAPO is the Housing Accountability and Production Office. So we work directly with them for the state to change the code that enables cottage clusters and simple lot divisions to happen in Oregon. And much like you, they installed urban form. So their city planners use it every day to reference all the different code changes that need to happen to facilitate this type of a development. Up here in financing and funding, the employers and the ECDev agency brought real capital and are bringing more capital and clout to the table. They provided pre-development capital and we bought the land, and that land is now subordinated to the project. That means the builders pay us capital at the end of the project when their houses sell. They don't pay us before, they pay us when the houses sell. That's a huge win for our builders because we hold the risk until the house sells. So you could choose to do something like that too if you wanted a newer builder or a newer technology. And then down in the bottom right, two of our builders, Mods PDX and Cedarstone, are training people on how you build offsite technologies in this project. Okay, so I wanted to explain that because we think that potentially that Site 8 on Columbia View, or maybe one of those skinny strips at the north, could be a good fit to launch a project like this as soon as the infrastructure is ready to support it. So we could start getting planning underway now. So I wanted to get a gut check from all of you. This doesn't mean you're committing to that. This doesn't mean it's exactly what you wanted to do, but I wanted to leave the last 10 minutes or so for questions or comments on, is a project like this? It would be your own flavor. It would be very specific to Boardman and to your needs and your community's needs. But would a project like this be an interesting way to begin building at Columbia View, just so you could show things are happening, stuff is moving, it's a lower risk because it's literally less units, smaller in size, and it's a way for this committee to frankly practice, right? Here's how you would practice working on a development before you bit off the bigger chunks of that site. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, I love it. I think it's a great idea. I'm always been in favor of the cottage cluster. So that's always been a big thing. I want to go back to something that Michael Graham said and something that the economic development team that we worked with not Marta, excuse me, Carla with, and that was that this town is small. And when you are in a small town, you appreciate the small town features of it. Things like clear walking paths so that you can navigate without transportation and access to our new little bus system, which is really delightful. And trees and benches and all the things that go with that. And I do think that that is something that needs to be thought of at the development stage. So maintaining that sense of small town. And then I do have a question about the size of this flag lot. How big is it? And if we go back to the original map of what it would actually cover in the pink areas, so we could see what we're really talking about.
Sure thing. Hold on 1 second. I'll call that up. Gary, do you know how big this thing is in acres?
It's approximately an acre. I couldn't give you the length and width of it off the top of my head, and I don't have any site information in front of me.
I can give it to you if you can pull up the map again.
Wait, you mean this map?
Yes, that one. Where's 8? Right there.
I thought you were talking about the Newburgh property.
Yeah, the Newburgh
I
property.
am. I'm wanting. I'm wanting to know how big that piece
It's a little
is.
bit more than an acre, Brenda.
So how big do you think 8 is there, Junior?
It's over an acre.
Yeah.
So
Right
it would
at it.
largely fill up block 8.
It might be a difficult parcel only because of the way the house that's sitting on the very end corner comes into that. That's my only thought about that particular piece. It might be difficult to work around that. But if the alleyway went through and you were able to come in off of 3rd Street on the the south end of the property, you could probably do something interesting there.
Yeah, to give you a little scale, sites 3, 4, and 5 are right at an acre.
It's 1.1 acre total.
Yeah.
It's about the same size, Brenda, different configuration.
Yeah, the configuration's a little squirrely on piece 8, unfortunately for that. But so, and then on that, with like Brenda was talking about with the walking path, I think it's a great idea if there's separation from 4, 5, 6, and 7, if those become, businesses or whatever, to have the walking area accessing that business cluster as well.
Yeah. Other big picture thoughts on, should we consider this style of a development and why?
If it's the quickest way to break ground, I'm all for it. I mean, I've said since the beginning, until I actually see some dirt move, we haven't really accomplished anything. So, and I'm all for that, and it looks nice. I mean, that's what you want.
And I'll jump in and say one of the things that I don't like to see when I go to a community is these cookie cutter houses side by side by side by side. It just looks. I like the fact that there was all these different innovations and different architectural structures in one small area. I think it's kind of refreshing from what you normally see, especially in our area.
And I like that, what you just said, Junior. And the other thing I would add too is, like, if we're trying to be unique in what we're trying to do, this is the way to go, because I think the complaints, like what you're talking about, is like you go to every town or city or whatever, and everybody's house looks exactly the same now. They're almost all the same color, and it's like, I don't know. For me, that looks weird. And why not stand out compared to all the other towns?
In defense of those communities, they do that because it's cheaper. They can sell their houses cheaper if they build them all the same. But
That's right.
This is interesting in that you got 5 different builders in a 10 unit complex doing all these new innovations. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I need to point out one of the hardest parts of this development is that developers are generally in control of everything in every project they do. And in this project, none of them are in control. So a lot of the difficulty of this type of a project is ego management. It's, getting everybody to agree and sort of see the bigger picture. That's hard. It's legitimately hard.
I wanted to see if Karen had any thoughts on this. I do want to say I like continuity. I don't mind that. I appreciate that there's different, it's not cookie cutter. I appreciate a few different colors, but I also like things to blend and have continuity. So, but I want to see if Karen has any thoughts.
No, I agree that I would prefer not to have it all look the same. So I'm okay with that. And you're going over the history, and that's days gone by. Just nice information. So no, I think that being Boardman can help support some of this program, and that's beneficial to us. So no, I'm good.
Thanks, Karen.
Michael?
That.
We took a survey of everyone that didn't, all my managers and supervisors, which is about 65 people that we got responses from that didn't live in Boardman and lived somewhere else. And we asked them why, and a lot of questions. It was interesting. The response, most of the time, wasn't because of Boardman didn't have amenities. It came down to it didn't have a house that I liked. Um, the reason why they're living in Tri-Cities mostly, somewhat in Hermiston, but other areas. I mean, we have people coming from Pilot Rock. Um, is they found a property or they found somebody that fit their personality. And you look at the barriers, and we talk about amenities and stores a lot, but I like the fact that it gives a vision of what Boardman could become as call it a bedroom community, call it a small town, this feeling of I feel like I belong here. I can find a house that fits my personality. Um, most of the people responded that if they could find a place in Boardman, they would live in Boardman. They are tired of traveling all this way to work, and they and so another interesting comment was they get it. They can choose where they go to eat, right? They can choose where they shop. They can't. They are pretty much stuck uh, where they work. They have to show up at work at a certain time and do a certain thing because that is the agreement. They could say they could go work somewhere, but they like working here and they would like working for us for Tillamook. And so they have to get up every morning and drive. They can't say, "Oh, I'm tired. I'd rather not go so far." If they're hungry, they can choose um, where they go. They can say, "Oh, I'm not feeling traveling," or "I do want to travel someplace else." So I like this thought that creating some place, some space that has personality, that appeals to what can happen in Boardman.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Ricardo?
I'm not going to add anything that hasn't already been said, but I'm totally all for it. I love the variety. I love that it's different. It looks nice. That concept is great. So I'm all for it.
Okay. Thanks. Bobby?
No, same as Ricardo. Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm ready to move forward and help where I can.
Well, we are at time. So what I'll do is I'll close down our meeting for the day. Our next meeting, as a reminder, is I believe it's May 16. Is that right? Hold on. Let's stop share. Okay. And we had agreed that we're going to start at 9 a.m. that day. We're going to have an extra hour on that day. Sorry, it's the 19th, May 19th. So we're going to start at 9 a.m. on the 19th. I will update the calendar file. I think, Junior, you might have been the one person that had a conflict. I remember. And what we're going to do that day is we're going to focus on our Developer 101 and get an update on this project. Okay. In the meantime, I will start putting together a proposal for how we might actually tell the story, right? Because it starts with a story. How we tell the story about why we would do a cottage cluster. What are our goals? What's the point? Why here? Why now? And what's important to us? You've given us all that feedback over the past 6 months. So I think can do a pretty good job of regurgitating it at least to 90%. But we'll put that out to you so that you have a chance to review it before our next meeting. And if everybody's feeling like, okay, this is a good idea, we will concurrently with the development planning work that Gary is leading, we will start to think about how we could launch the development of a cottage cluster on this site, which then Gary would incorporate into all of his planning. Okay, sound good?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. If we did decide to do it on that section 8 there, would we want to maybe talk to the people who live right there to see their thoughts as well, just so we don't have
We'd
bad
have to.
neighbors? Yep. Okay. Just want to
Yeah,
make
we'd
sure.
have to. Yeah, I mean, the typically the folks who care the most are the folks that are next door.
And
Uh,
I mean, I don't. It's not like it's not going to block a view. The only thing they see from there is the freeway for all intents and purposes. So I don't
right.
think that's going to be an issue. But it is going to be kind of a different change, and make sure that we aren't being bad neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, everybody that lives in that neighborhood has had a big open space for a really long time behind their houses.
Since the
Um,
beginning of time.
right.
And they
And
had the option to purchase the land behind them if they so desired.
that's right.
So,
Um, and as you guys, saw the last time we did planning for this, very preliminary, there will be open space as a piece of this. There has to be. So, but yeah, that's a really good point, Junior. Like the easiest way to make a project miserable is to tick off the neighbors. So, okay. With that, we're going to close for the day. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you very much. And if you have other questions, please please reach out to Gary's dog or myself or Amy. Uh,
bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.
all right. See you, everybody.